in my own hometown. Stranger.
Howdy folks, little John here. We're out in the brewery again. As you see from the front there, we're following up on the 2 versus 1 packs of Yeast experiment. Just while I was getting ready for that, I've just taken a quick hydro sample on the Arrogant Bastard clone. It's at day 7. It's sitting on 1020, which is exactly where I expected it to finish. So I will dry hop that after I've finished here. I've got hop bag in, sterilising at the moment. And I'll pop in, I don't know, probably around 30 grams of Chinook. I've got the ends of the packet in there. It's somewhere between 30 and 35 grams in there. Ooh, jeez. That's coming along nicely. So, that's later on. As I said, today it's the taste testing and the comparison on the 2 versus 1 yeast experiment. Now, it's been over two months. It's like 9 weeks since this batch was bottled. Just to refresh everyone, I did a all-in golden ale fresh wort kit, which I split between 2 batches, 10 litres in either batch. One I did with 1 pack of dry yeast, so the equivalent of, or roughly the equivalent of half of using 2 packets dry in a standard 23 litre batch. The second half, the other 10 litres, I pitched half a pack of yeast, USA 5 for both of them, which was to replicate using that 1 standard pack dry in a normal 23 litre batch. And they were both fermented at 19.8 degrees, and looking to see what difference there is between the two. This is the 3rd time now I've sat down and done this taste comparison myself over the last sort of 6 weeks. I had done a video previously, but after copping a little bit of contention online over the fact that 1 person doing an experiment's not enough to give clear scientific proof, I ditched that video and didn't post it. I've made comment that I believe that one way was better than the other, but following on from these comments, I thought I'll try to get a bit of a group together and do a bit of testing. That was organised for last weekend. That fell over for a couple of different reasons. There's only a couple of people in the local brew club, and it can be difficult to get them together with sports and all the rest of it. So I thought, hang it. It's my experiment. It's based around my experiences, my trials, my tasting and my preferences. So, you know, at the end of the day, what I come up with is what matters. I don't really care if somebody else is going to say something. I know what I taste. I know what I'm looking at and what I can report back to everybody. So, poured both there. So, just a quick run through on the actual brewing, the fermentation. As I said, USA 5. Both fermenters sat at ambient temperature here in the garage, just on the garage floor, side by side, so there weren't any pockets or anything weird. And the temperature in here was about 23 degrees maximum. It may have dipped down to probably around 20 overnight. So the yeast got a nice start, and 24 hours later, the 2-pack yeast had a good whack of frowsing. The 1 pack really hadn't done much at all. It had a small amount of scum on top, but not a lot. At that point, I put both into the fridge. The fridge space was clear. The fridge was set to 19.8 degrees, and there they sat. So 24 hours later, so 2 days into the ferment, the 2-pack had dropped to, from 1046 original gravity, it dropped to 1028. The single packet was only sitting on 1034, so I was lagging 6 points behind after the 48 hours. I checked again 2 days later. The 2 packs was down to 1012, the 1 pack was at 1016, so the gap was only 4, but yeah, that was pretty close to terminal. By day 6, both had finished out at 1010. I let them sit for another 4 days, and then over 2 days dropped the temperature down to 5.8, and then let it sit for 3 days. Now, I would assume I would have cold crashed completely, but I've not got another reading here. So I'm not sure whether it's at 5.8 for the next 3 days, or whether I would have dropped it down to closer to 1 degree, which is a normal process. So I think that would have been happening. Either way, they've both been subjected to the same thing. At the end of the day, 5th of the 5th of May, May the 5th, they were both bottled. Both had finished out in 2009. Half of each batch went into a 9 litre keg, which I'll put on tap, and the other half were bottled with 2/3 of a carb drop in each 330ml bottle, and then left to condition at the same rate. So they've sat in these particular beers would have sat in the cupboard for about 6 weeks, and they've been in the fridge now for probably 3 weeks. They've been handled exactly the same. That's your 2 different beers. Beer on your right or on my left is the 1 pack of yeast, and this is the 2 packs of yeast. Now looking at him, there's not a lot of difference. The one thing I have noticed with all 3 samples is there is a little bit more head on the 2 pack beer, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with the head on that. Now my nose is pretty stuffed up at the moment. I've got a bit of a bloody cold trying to come on. And really the same as both times through. The smell is very, very similar. There's not really any noticeable difference. And as for look, they look the same. There's no real difference. So as I said, 1 pack. And that one's the 2 pack. Right, straight off, I'm getting the same impression from these 2 beers as I've got from the previous 2 times I've sampled them. The beer that's been done with the 2 packs has got more body. It is cleaner. The 1 pack is it's thinner. It's got an underlying, not quite a stringency, but there's a little bit of yeast bite, which isn't in the 2 pack beer. It's a definite yeast character. So exactly what it's from. One is to assume that if you're pitching incorrect numbers, lower numbers, than it is stressed, then that's what's causing it. The yeast has had to work a bit harder. And it's made for what is essentially a thinner bodied beer. Despite the fact, as I said, they both finish exactly the same gravity, same alcohol, everything's the same except for that yeast. And I don't know, I can't explain what really causes that. But that 2-pack beer is definitely, it's cleaner, it's got the malt presence is there, the hops are there. There's no unexpected flavour there. There's nothing underlying that sort of, you know, is off-putting, which there is in that. That being said, it's only a little bit. Well, I'm not going to sit here and say that's a bad beer, because it's not a bad beer. And you know, plenty of people, they're making beer with 1 pack of yeast. They've done it for donkey's ages, and they say, "Oh, my beer's fine. I make good beer with 1 pack of yeast." I make good beer with 1 pack of yeast. Not going to deny that. Not going to doubt it. And you give it to most people, and they're going to be quite happy to drink it. And on its own, you go, yeah, it's not a bad drop. But when you put that beer in for a direct comparison, that is a much better beer. I'd certainly much rather be drinking that one than that one. Now, I started throwing around this idea of 2 packs of yeast probably 18 months ago. I started 2016. And I sort of come across this. Pardon me. The inconsistency with the amount of yeast cells, viable yeast numbers that are pitched in a dry packet. And I started going, okay, we're going to use 2 packets. I come to my own decision from my own reading that 2 packs of yeast seemed to be a much better option. And I found straight away that my beers were improving. Beers that I've made previously were, well, I believe, were better. And since then I've used it. I've pitched higher quantities of yeast, whether it be 2 packs of dry or making a starter using liquids, or at times even using starters with dry yeast for making lagers. And I really don't know where the hell I was going with that. Yeah, but as I said, I've found better. I've been putting it out there, and I've found that a lot of people, there are people out there that have reported back and are commenting back that they've started using 2 packs of yeast, and they've found that their beers are improved, their brewing's better after doing it. Yeah, again, it's not scientific, but I'm not seeing a lot of people standing up and going, hang on, no, I tried 2 packs and found that 1 pack was better and went back and I can now use 1 packet. Just hasn't seemed to have happened. So I can only take from that other people are finding the same thing. It makes sense given the readings and the numbers that are out there. There are a few cases of studies and reports and different people that have said there's plenty of yeast in a 1 pack, but I find that by and large there is far more people supporting the fact that there's not enough than there is, and my own testing has proven otherwise. And this right here, I can't get any closer to, well, this is a complete direct comparison with 1 pack versus 2, and the 2 pack is a better beer. As you can see, that's it. If you're bunging that out with 1 pack of yeast, it's a nice head, it's clean, smooth. That flavour, if you're not looking at it as from a yeast numbers perspective, could be put down to any number of things. It's the hops, it's a late addition, it's a dry hop, it's a grain, it's a crystal that's in there, it's the mash temperature. There's plenty of things you can put it down to that are causing that, just that little bit of weird flavour there. But when you drink that one next to it, it's obvious what the problem, what's causing it. It's the yeast. So You know, that's it. My verdict, clearly, 2 packs of yeast, plenty of yeast numbers to make the best beer that you can. Yeah, it's a cheap exercise. A pack of US-05 for an ale, even at an expensive home brew shop, it's going to cost you $6. Over a 60 stubby batch, that's 10 cents a beer. That's not a real lot to get the best beer you can, in my opinion. It's definitely worth it. Yeah, it's easy. You haven't got to do anything more. There's only going to open one extra pack of yeast and throw it in. Yeah, I certainly would recommend that yeast be rehydrated. And again, that's another argument. People go, oh, if you rehydrate, you don't need the second packet. That's bollocks. It's absolute bollocks. All rehydrating does is allows more cells to survive. It's not a massive amount of difference on the number you're pitching, and regardless, you're only pitching a certain amount to start with. The more of them you can keep alive, the better. But you're still not going to get, you're not going to gain 80 billion cells just because you rehydrate. You're going to reduce death, you're not going to increase the cell number. Some people seem to have trouble getting their head around that idea. That's all you're doing. You're not growing. You want to grow cell. You want to grow yeast. You've got to do a starter. Rehydrating doesn't grow cells. It just reinvigorates them. It wakes them up, gets them ready to work, gets them alive, and it gets more healthy numbers in there to work out if you dry. You're only starting with a finite number. You can't increase that with a rehydration. So if you want to make the best beer you can, yeah, there's plenty of steps that are involved. It's not just yeast. There's all sorts of things. You know, correct mash temperatures, you know, fermentation temperatures, temp controlled fridges, you know, sanitation. And it doesn't matter whether it's all grain, if it's kit and kilo, you know, partial mash. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. At the end of the day, once it's in that little bloody container that goes into your fridge to ferment in, it's all wort, and it's all got to have healthy amounts of yeast in there to turn into beer. So if you're using dry yeast, get a second pack, rehydrate it. It's not hard, it's easy to do. Get 2 packets in there every time. If you're doing lagers, get 3 packets. You know, you may even want to consider 4 packets, but that's another that's a slightly different issue. But generally you're looking to double for a lager. We're talking the average, you know, the average Joe's blowing out an ale. It's sitting in his garage. It's 18 degrees. It's 20 degrees. It's somewhere in that mark. He's throwing US-05 or some similar derivative, whether it be M84 or bloody M44, or bloody Mangrove Jacks, or BRY97, or you know, even a Windsor, an SO4, you know, Nottingham, whatever. You need 2 packets. You'll notice a difference. You'll thank yourself for doing it when you do, because you're going to get cleaner, better beer. And at the end of the day, we don't brew beer to brew rubbish. We brew beer to brew good beer, the best beer we can. And that means using the correct ingredients and the correct processes. And from this point of view, 2 packs, definitely the right process. So, I'm going to finish these. Get on with dry hopping of my other brew. And then I've got to think about cooking dinner. So, that's got me taken care of. So until I'm looking at you again, good brewing.